Truth, lies, shenanigans.
Yep, that's what we're going to do. Jump right on in the hot topic. Let's do it.
Truth, lies, shenanigans.
All right. Let me tell you how Hot Topics works. I'll pick one of our hot topics, one of our hosts, and they will let you know if their hot topic is a truth, lie, or shenanigans. Then we'll talk about it until we see our friend Genji, who will let us know when time is up. Then we'll be looking online for your questions and comments, and we'll talk about it for just a little bit more. Once we're done, we'll go on to the next host and their topic. All right, Lizzie, you've got a hot topic. Is this a truth, lie, or shenanigans?
It's it's a little. I always get the hot topics that are both truth and shenanigans. And I don't think anyone has gotten a flat out lie, right? Have we done like a lie hot topic?
And we've gotten some lies. We can talk Trump. We
Okay,
probably
I was gonna say
almost every
aside from
Trump conversation is a lie.
Trump, aside from Trump, any straight out lie hot topic. But this is a truth and shenanigans. So we're talking about today the Netflix movie Cuties. So Cuties came out, it's a French movie. It was released on Netflix on September 9th. So just a month ago, it was released. And it's had a lot of backlash, a lot of controversy because of the images that have been put forth from the movie, some of the subject matter. The story of Cuties is about a young girl in France, and it's kind of like a coming of age story, but it's a coming of age story that includes this young lady trying to rebel from her Muslim family, but also trying to find herself as well. And in order to do that, she is looking towards um, sexually explicit images of young ladies in the media, particularly as it pertains to dance. So here is one of the images from the movie Cuties, where you can see the type of dance movements and motions that are included in this particular movie. And in the movie, these young girls are supposed to be 11 years old.
Hmm. Yep.
So just take a look at that. Were y'all dancing
And
like this? Just for the ladies in the audience, were y'all dancing like this at 11? I'm
I,
not going to comment. I'm not going to answer that question. But everyone else, were you dancing like this at 11?
I mean, I just want to say real quick, these are actual 11 and 12-year-olds. I mean, it's not like they use 15, 16, 17-year-olds who look like young. These are actually 11-year-olds in this film. But no,
So,
I don't dance like that now. So
well,
I
because you
can't.
can't dance. But
exactly.
I mean, I've been known to drop it several times, but I'm an adult, so I'm allowed to do that. However, someone posted this week that I thought was very telling, and I wanted to talk about it as it relates to this conversation. Can you pull up the image of WAP and Cuties?
Sure. WAP and Cutie. Yeah.
So, someone posted this image earlier this week and posed the question, um, do we wonder where these young ladies are getting this from? And for those of you who are unfamiliar, WAP was a very explosive, sexually explicit song that was released earlier, I believe at the end of August, early September, by rappers Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion.
Hmm.
And it actually was the number one song in the United States, at least for several weeks. So it was a very profitable song. But the images were very explosive, very explicit. And so people are likening that and saying that is the reason why we have the images in Cuties on the left. I'm sorry, on the right. So my question initially for the panel is,
Hmm.
who do you think is responsible for this, first and foremost?
When you say responsible for this, you're saying the movie itself?
The movie, the images that you saw in the movie, the gyrating, the twerking, the dancing that you saw in the movie.
Um, go ahead, Robbie. I'll let you talk.
Who's ultimately responsible? The parents that are enabling this behavior and driving their children to succeed in that industry, if you will. I've always struggled with pageant, like child pageantry and whatnot. If you want to do a straight up talent show, that's amazing. But when you start sexualizing children, I really have an ethical objection to it.
Okay.
Um, so I mean, when you're saying who's responsible, I mean, it's really about the consumption of the internet and all of the graphic sexualizations online of girls and women. Um, it's I mean, it's really that's what it's about. That if you talk about responsibility, it's our responsibility. I mean, and there's some parenting issues as well that we're talking about. But I mean, this movie kind of uh, highlighted the fact that parenting wasn't necessarily the problem, but it was part of the problem. So, um, I do want to say we probably will have some spoilers about the movie, so we probably should have prefaced it with that. But I don't know. I think it's really about, um, when she got a hold of a phone and she was able to start
I'm
consuming the
sorry.
internet.
Got a
Right?
hold of a phone when she stole a phone.
Okay.
When she stole the phone.
Potato, potato. when she when she had a phone and she had it for several days and she was able to start consuming some images that she didn't have access to before, it changed the way she was acting and behaving. And it was during a time when she was struggling with some things. So go ahead.
And so that goes to my next point because I think because of the misguided and badass adults in the situation. And again, I've said this on several occasions, mostly as it relates to how children are responding or acting in the virtual teaching session. But this is a part of a larger scope where you have children responding or acting out as a result of decisions being made by adults, if you will. And so in this particular situation, we have a movie, Cuties, that is being marketed in the United States by Netflix, by adults. And to see this, you think you're going to watch basically an 11-year-old porno film, if you will, and an 11-year-old strip show, if you will. But if for those people who have in the audience who have watched Cuties, this movie isn't really about the dancing. Yes, it plays a large part. However, the actual theme and point of the movie is this young lady, and as Neo pinpointed, dealing with struggles that she's having with her family. She comes from an African Muslim family, if you will, that's very strict. But even though they're strict, they don't pay attention to her.
Hmm.
But she's also dealing with um,
She's
body
taking care of her
image,
brother as well. So she's
taking care
basically
of
a
her brother,
parent,
and there's a baby.
a
There's a
baby.
small baby in the background. Um, I suspected because she had a very adverse reaction to her father, her biological father. So I suspected that there may have been some sexual abuse involved. There were also some very old, deep seated African traditions that were involved that she really, as an 11-year-old living in France, wasn't really in tune with. All of these things made up this story that had really nothing to do with the sexual images we just saw. That reaction was a result of all of this other stuff. But you didn't get that
Yeah.
in the way that the adults marketed this movie. They
So
marketed this movie as something that was based on sex and dancing and the exploitation of these little girls.
yeah,
And that's an adult problem,
yeah.
not the problem of the little kids.
So
Nia?
I initially had decided I would probably never watch this movie. I mean, based upon everything I'd been hearing about it, and like Rob B, I'd seen the sexualization of kids, and I hate that. Right. So I had decided I wasn't going to watch it, but because of this segment, I felt it was important to be able to speak on it. So I did watch it, and um, you know, it was not as bad as I expected because of everything that I had heard. Don't get me wrong, it was bad. Um, you know, I had to look away a lot of times because there were definitely excessively graphic scenes. They had some extremely lingering close-ups. And then they do this for like 2 or 3 minutes and made me feel very uncomfortable watching. But honestly, I think that was kind of the point of the movie, right? To kind of make you feel uncomfortable, make you feel angry about this, because and try to understand how children are seeing the world today. You know how children are having to deal with this. They're dealing with these major issues, and then their outlet is, like I say, consuming the internet, consuming the Cardi B's of the world and the Megan the Stallions of the world, and porn is so readily available. And with, like I said, Cardi B talking about wet vaginas, and you know, I'm
What
just
wet
saying,
vagina? You mean Cardi B talking about WAP? For
yes.
those of you who don't know what WAP means, and I'm not gonna get any points for cussing because I'm just quoting Cardi B. WAP means wet ass pussy. WAP
Pussycats.
means wet ass pussy. So at some point over the past month, the number one song in the United States was wet ass pussy.
Right.
And that's the image, again, that is being projected by adults that these young ladies are consuming.
Yeah.
And so let me just say, and I'll let you finish in a second, but let
Uh,
me just say, we can't talk about, especially as persons of color, as Black people, we can't consistently talk about how representation is important in terms of having Black people being represented in images, in the media, in on the newsstands, in Hollywood, et cetera, et cetera. We can't keep talking about how image is important, representation is important, when the type of representation that we are putting out there is detrimental to us,
yeah.
specifically to our young
Mhm.
girls.
Yeah.
Neo?
Yeah. And all I was gonna say was, it seems like I just feel like Cuties was just putting parents on notice. Hey, this is what's happening. You think back to the episode we had with the little girl who was beaten by her
Yes.
mom. And
Yes.
we were so angry with how she was beaten by her mom. But the fact remains, you have to be able to talk to your kids about these things. If you have to understand, you know, granted, she's probably copying off of WAP, and maybe even she saw Cuties. And so that little girl was just learning. So, but again, we have to be able to talk to our kids and teach them right from wrong. So the parents are responsible in that sense.
I definitely think she saw Cuties because
Yeah, there
if you
was very
hopefully you
similar.
didn't see the video, but it was what she did in her video was very similar
Yep.
to the young girls in their
Yeah, I think she
excuse me,
watched Cody.
Mhm.
dance performance in Cuties. But the other portion of this particular topic is now Netflix is being taken to task by the government, by the judicial system, if you will,
Yep.
for Cuties. So they have been indicted by a Texas grand jury over lewd depiction of children. So, what
Mhm.
say you, gentlemen, about that?
And we only have 30 seconds, but we'll try to get it in. Good,
Right.
Robbie.
And unfortunately, to me, it's an indictment of the entire industry because shows like Dance Moms and these pageants have been around forever. This has been happening for decades and decades, and people are okay with it. They're objectifying these young girls. And to me, it is a gateway industry for pedophiles to get that exposure, to get that content. Yeah, like I really struggle with it.
Yeah, and
Nia?
yeah, you
Well, hold
mentioned
up.
Dan. Uh,
I thought Gingy was going to come in for a second.
oh, he's a little late today.
Here we go. Here we go.
All right. So, uh, yeah, so I'll just be real brief. So, as far as the Dance Moms, and I know we had a clip we were going to show, but as far as Dance Moms, you know, Cuties was a little more visual, more sexualized than the show Dance Moms. But the reality is, I mean, this is what's happening, and you know, there is a sexualization of kids, and teaching kids to be adults before their time, going on. So,
I think we
but as
have
far
time.
as the
Can we just show very quickly that Dance Moms clip
yeah,
so
I just
you
want to
can see
say,
that?
I just want
Go
to say
ahead. Go ahead.
to
Yeah.
answer the question though, to answer the question about the charges. I don't think anything's going to come of that because, of course, there's freedom of speech. But I mean, you can't. I don't think there was. There doesn't appear to be any actual pornography or anything here that happened. So, um, I don't. I think it's just a charge just to make a point, which I think it should be made.
political point. This Dance Moms clip, remember, this is a few years old. This is well before Cuties. Okay. This aired on TLC on cable. This is a very popular show in the United States, in North America, and there was no lewd charges
Right.
for this particular video, for this particular show. Not a lot of backlash, not people up in arms, not people saying that,
Some of
oh,
these are
we are
worse than,
yeah,
'cause
I mean, if you go through a couple of the episodes of Dance Mom, very similar to what we saw in Cuties. Very
yeah.
similar.
Like I say, I don't
And
think they did the close-ups, the lingering close-ups that they did in Cuties. But again, I really do think that was about making you feel uncomfortable. I really think that's what that was.
and these are, look at this young girl. She even knew. That little girl knew that this wasn't right.
Yeah.
And these young girls here in this particular clip and video, they're probably the same age, 11, as the young girls in Cuties. Look at this mom's face.
And
Like,
that
what?
invested mom, she's proud of her daughter's competitive edge. Meanwhile, what her daughter did was just smack her butt for the entire room. I'm sorry, that's, again, it's the sexualization of children, and mom's just, oh, yes, she nailed it. She nailed it. You had one job, mom. You had one job.
It looks like Leah's back online, so I'm gonna try to, while this is playing, I'm gonna just go over some of these comments online and see if we can get to Leah next. Let's see. We have Latoya Blakely. She said, "LMAO, we might have done this at slumber parties when we were girlies." I think this starts at home. Jacqueline Robinson says, "Look at John Benet Ramsey and how little girls are sexualized as young as 5 years old by entering them into beauty pageants." Jeanette Brown says, "The people who sell the stuff or the people who buy the stuff, these are the people responsible, by the way, are the people make us, wait, hold on, I lost it. Sorry, lost that one." Latoya Blakely, "For a long time, so many videos were so explicit that they were not allowed to watch them. I didn't rebel against this because it was all I knew." Daria Winter said, "Sin in the world." Kevin Thaxton, "The movie was marketed in Europe differently than the United States."
Exactly, Kevin. Yes. Yes. We are the one that put the sex stamp on this movie.
Oh, and Rupka said to her dad, "Sorry, it's a quote." That,
Wow.
apparently her dad is watching. My dad is
Let me
watching.
just, can I just end it on this? So and we've all been 11, 12, 13 years old. And at some point, especially with young girls, guys too, but I'm not a boy, so I can't speak from the guy perspective.
No?
But from young girls, we are all, no, you're doubting that I'm a girl?
No, I
I
wouldn't.
mean, yeah, this is a family show. We're not going to get explicit here. But young ladies always want to grow up faster than what biology allows. We're always looking towards adults for an
Boys too.
example.
Boys too.
Boys do
And
too.
so if as adults we're not putting out the proper example, we can't blame the kids for the reaction or how they manifest, how they interpret that example. If we are out there shaking ass, talking about WAP, showing it all for the cameras, that's what the young girls are going to emulate. And again, I said I wasn't going to talk about what I was doing at 11. I mean, someone I think in the comments just mentioned something about what we did at slumber parties. I mean,
That was Latoya.
I was very curious when I was younger. Virgin until I was 23 years old, but very curious when I was younger and acting out in ways because I saw certain things on television, in the media. And so, again, as adults, we need to do better.
Yep.
We need to do better.
All right. All right, great. So let's go ahead, unless there was anything else you wanted to add about Cuties. We're going to move
One
on
thing
to.
I wanted to add was that this young girl comes from I guess, a culturally repressive household. And I don't want to discount the effect that that has on a child. When you grow up in a strict religious household, a child will find those opportunities to rebel. And typically, they're in dangerous adult behaviors, whether it be sex, drugs, alcohol. But children who are raised in those very oppressive households have a tendency to really rebel hard. So that's just another thing to really consider in the whole dynamic of it.
Um,
And she was rebellious throughout the entire movie, and there wasn't a lot of communication from the adults in her life with her. There was a lot of yelling. There was one instance where her mama beat her, but
Similar
there
to
wasn't.
the the
Yeah,
video we saw.
but there was a disconnect. But Neo, very quickly, did you pick up on the moment where? Do you remember in the movie where she was asleep in bed
Hmm.
and her mom came in very calmly and was like, "It's time." And she woke her up and got her out of bed, and she went out into the living room area, whatever. So she meant it's time, that it was time for her to do something. So knowing what I know about a lot of rituals, if you will, in particular African countries and cultures, I immediately was like, okay, we are about to witness female circumcision, and I am going to have to turn this off right now. Like
Oh,
I was just,
Mhm.
I would
I
agree.
like lost my voice, and thankfully it was not that. They just made her cut up a bunch of onions and prepare some food. But for a second, I was just like, no, we are not, given everything else that we've already seen, we cannot go there. We cannot go there. And so, like Rob said, there are a lot of cultural differences in this movie that I don't think the American audience, it was not marketed well to prepare them for that. All we saw was a bunch of young girls twerking and shaking their ass.
Yeah.
And we weren't prepared for all of this other stuff that was going on in the actual story.
I mean, the end of the movie really showed what the problem was. I mean, she kind of realized that this isn't really what she wants to be. I mean, she realized that this is not who she is. It's just she was kind of just going with what was happening, and she was trying to deal with what was going on. And I love the way she had that connection with her mother at the end, and um, the connection she didn't have before. And again,
Hmm.
I really believe there was a point to what Netflix was doing, and it wasn't just about sexualization of women. I really do believe that there was more
Right.
to it than that. So,
They just marketed it improperly here
so that
in
when
the
we
States.
consume it, that's all we see. Yeah.
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 Shenanigans, truth, lies, shenanigans, truth, lies, shenanigans.